Welcome to the hunt.
Good afternoon and welcome back to HuntCast podcast. It is Sunday, March the 17th. We're excited to be back with you. Today is going to be a fun-filled episode because we're going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff. But we'll start off with some of the upcoming things going on. So currently in the archery world is indoor nationals right now down in Louisville, Kentucky. We have a couple local shooters that are friends of ours that are down there. Next week is the Fort Mitchell, Alabama ASA shoot. And then more on outdoor realm, hunting and fishing. Coming up April 6th is the statewide Pennsylvania trout opener.
Yep.
And then turkey season will be coming right up beside that. So for those of you that are coming to our shoot, yes, we know it's during turkey season. We actually have a few manufacturers that have mentioned that they are going to come in a little bit early because there's some public land right by the mountain that they're going to go try to tag out on a turkey.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's probably, you can almost throw a football maybe from where that parking lot is to the parking lot at the resort.
Yeah, it's right there.
So,
yep. And once again, we spoke about it a couple weeks ago, but that shoot is 17th through the 19th.
Correct.
Yes, May 17th through the 19th.
So fun times. Hopefully it'll be a little bit cooler in the morning. And sorry, getting a little bit of feedback in my headphones here. But so last week we did a bow breakdown. We're going to do another bow breakdown today. Doug, give us the details on the bow.
Yes. So this week we're going to be talking about the Bear Persist. New for this year,
yep,
right?
New flagship bow.
Yep. So the specs on that are 31 inches ATA, axle to axle. It has a 6.5 inch brace height. The let off on it is 75 to 90, so that's adjustable. Draw weight only comes in two different draw weights. So the draw weights are going to be from 45 to 60 or 55 to 70, which is that's the bow that we have
Correct.
to play with today.
We have a 55 to 70 bow here.
Yes. Some of the features of it has the integrate rest, has a pick mount for your sight. This is kind of cool. It has a haul loop built into the upper, kind of like almost by the limb pocket.
Yep.
So you can kind of hook on there and pull it up into your stand. It has an integrated wrist sling, which is kind of cool. And it has a tunable roller guard as well.
Yep.
MSRP is kind of right in the middle of where everyone else is. You know, all the top manufacturers. MSRP is $1,249, kind of right there, within $50 or $100 of everybody else.
Yep. And that's I know a lot of people. It's like it's a bear, and when you see the bow, it's a very good looking bow. But yeah, so a lot of people kind of look at it funny. It's like a bear for $1,250. The other one little spec that Doug didn't mention was the riser level. So that's becoming a really big thing in certain brands. They're putting riser levels in. So it's a little bit easier when you're setting up maybe a 3D scope or, you know, something that like a spot hog or a red line where the scope can be separated from the sight bar itself to make sure that everything is level. So this way, when you put it into a vise, you can make sure that your bow is level before you start, you know, screwing around with the scope housing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're going to get, if you saw or listened to last week's episode when we did the RVX, shortly when we're done here recording the podcast episode, we'll be heading over to the cameras and we'll film the breakdown on that bow on our YouTube channel, which is also a HuntCast podcast. So check that out. And we decided after we did the evolution of camo, basically, everybody has been listening to that episode. So thank you. So we decided we were going to do kind of a walkthrough of the compound bow.
Right. The evolution.
The evolution of it, basically.
Where it started.
Yep.
Where we are today.
And it's amazing when you go back and do this research because there weren't that many there weren't that many players to start with.
Right.
To where we are now with all these people that make bows. But so.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, I mean, and we didn't know like all this stuff off the top of our head. We had to do this research.
Right.
We're not that crazy.
We're not nerdy.
Yes. So as we were doing this research, it was really, you know, how many times did we just stop and say, wow, you know, look at each other like, wow, that's kind of crazy. So it's really, really an interesting story, how it all started and how we got to the point we're at now.
Mhm.
So yeah,
Mhm.
really
So
cool.
What blows my mind is when it started.
Yeah.
Because obviously there's so many bows out right now. I mean, there have been over the last, 40 years, 3 years that I've been living. I mean, Doug's older than I am, so he gets it.
Yeah.
But so give us the gentleman's name that started this. And some of you may have heard this name before because there's a current company with this name.
Right.
But it has nothing to do with this person, I don't think.
So it's H.W. Allen, Hollis Wilbur Allen. And he invented the compound bow in 1969.
Yep.
December 30th of 1969 is when he registered his first patent.
Yep. And that's when the patent was approved.
Right.
I believe he filed it the year before, but the funny part, it wasn't called a compound bow then.
Right.
The patent that he applied for and was approved for was for the force multiplying attachments for a bow.
Right.
So basically he was trying to take a recurve and make it shoot faster, make it stronger, and basically that's kind of what started this chain reaction of where we are now.
Right. Yeah. And back then I never even heard of an Allen bow.
Nope.
Never. I mean, I've heard of Allen attachments, back in the 70s and the 80s. It was Allen, there were Allen broadheads, there were Allen, tools and stuff. There were, rests. I believe they made some like those little flipper rests and stuff like that. But I never even knew that the Allen company had bows at one point. So.
Right. And that's where I was getting at. If you've heard the name before, there is an Allen company now that makes accessories and broadheads and targets and things of that nature, usually on the less expensive side of things.
Right.
But yeah, so that was the patent that was filed was patent number 3,486,495.
There'll be a test later.
Yes. So write that number down. So it basically, in the research, we found out that he has a bow that is in the Archery Hall of Fame in Missouri that, according to what we have read, was the ugliest piece of equipment you could possibly find.
Yeah.
And it didn't, he basically used that to get his patent.
Right.
And then he produced another bow, which was called the...
Well, that was the Speedster.
The Speedster.
That's the first one that actually went to market. That was the first one that you could actually purchase.
Gotcha.
And it was a little different, like the original prototype that the year before, that had a wood riser and wood limbs. It had wood cams, that's just crazy, but it had wood cams. I believe that the riser and the limbs were laminated. So it would, lamination is just different layers, right? So it's a layer of wood, a layer of fiberglass, a layer of wood, layer of fiberglass. That's what lamination is. And that's what his original riser and limbs were. And the whole reason for this was he was looking for lower holding weight.
Right.
He had the bow hunter in mind, and he wanted to lower the holding weight so that you can draw on an animal and stay drawn for whatever it takes, 10, 20, 30 seconds, whatever it may be. But that was his whole reason for this, was really the bow hunter. He was looking out for the bow hunter.
Right.
And then, so in 1970, the Speedster came out. And
wait till you hear the specs on this bad boy.
Yes. Yeah. So it was 50 pounds draw weight and 50 pound max weight. It was a 48 inches axle to axle. But here's the crazy part. As large as that is, 48 is crazy.
Yep.
It was only 3 pounds.
Yep.
3 pounds, which is really crazy. And that one had all fiberglass limbs with a hard maple handle.
And all weather stability.
Right. Yeah. And the let off, get ready, let off was 15%.
Yeah.
So, but when you're only holding, it's only 50 pounds. So
right.
15% isn't horrible, but
it's not horrible, but
it's not much of a let off.
No, not at all.
All that work for 15%, but that was just the groundwork, and it kind of blew up from there. So
jump ahead a couple years after 1970, and 1972 rolls around, and some other folks in the archery industry are looking at this and going, hey, we can do something with this. So by 1972, there were 3 main sellers of a compound bow, as it was known in 1972, and that was Carroll Archery, Olympus, and Allen.
Right.
Now, everybody has heard this name at some point. If you're a serious archer, gentleman that is well known for recurve bows and then basically helped speed up the process on a compound bow.
No pun intended.
Right, exactly. Is Jennings. So Jennings in 1972 realizes that the compound is going to be the name of the game, shuts down production on his recurves, and starts building compounds.
That was the Model T.
The Model T was his first bow.
Yeah.
And by 1970, what was it?
1975.
He was selling 60,000 compound bows a year.
Which is crazy.
Unheard of.
Crazy.
Like crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
So that's, so you had 3 companies, and then obviously Alan realizes the only way he's really going to make money, because his bow isn't going as fast or, going in the direction he wanted it to, that he needs to license out this patent to people.
Yeah.
So that's what he does, and Jennings gets a hold of it.
Yep.
Kills it.
Yes. And, there's a bunch of other guys too in 1975. So
right.
Alan licensed PSE, Bear, Martin, Browning, Pearson, and Hoyt.
Yep.
So 1975 is when all those guys kind of jumped into the game.
Right. Because again, they were all making Olympic recurves or standard recurves.
Right.
Because there was no such thing as a compound bow.
Right.
So then by 1977, there's 100 different bow models available to the consumer.
I don't know if there's 100 models available today. I don't think there is. To be honest with you.
Nope. I don't think there is. Because obviously every manufacturer only makes 4 or 5 models.
Right.
And there's definitely not, 20 well-off manufacturers that are selling that many bows or offering bows.
You could throw some target bows in there too, but even still, even if every manufacturer had 10, you wouldn't hit it. You wouldn't hit 100 models.
No. So. And the big thing you have to remember, the whole reason this all came about was not for target archery. This was for the hunter.
Right.
To build a shorter bow, faster bow, give you a little bit more something so that, you can easily take your game with a bow.
Yeah.
So 1977 is kind of like the kickoff year. You get all these people licensing the patent from Alan. Again, 100 bows from this many different companies.
Right. 6 or 7 different manufacturers.
And I'm sure there were, a few more that they didn't list in this research.
These are the big players.
Yeah, the big guys. So obviously,
and PSE, they're still today.
Right. So Browning is the only one that doesn't make a bow anymore.
Yep.
Pearson, I don't know if they're still 100% around. They may have changed ownership a couple times, and they're probably still there, but more on the recurve side than on the compound side. Yeah. But obviously PSE, huge.
Yeah.
Bear, we just talked about their brand new 2024 flagship bow.
Yep.
Martin, who has had some changes, because Doug and I talked with them at ATA 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And obviously Hoyt.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to throw this out there just because it's me, but you don't hear the word McPherson mixed into these names yet.
Right.
So I'm happy about that. I'm just kidding for all you Matthews fans out there.
Yeah.
So we speed up 20 years.
Well, actually, wait a second.
Oh, sorry.
But before that, speaking of Matthews, the first solo cam came out in 1975.
Right. So for all the fanboys, they did not create the one cam solo cam bow.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that
up.
Right after I did that. That was great. So you jump from the 1975 up to 1995.
Yep.
And now is when all of these manufacturers are trying to get more traction on the bow and trying to get it into the target world.
Yeah.
Because remember, the very first bows, the reason they were so long was because you were still shooting with your fingers.
Yes.
You get into the 80s, you're like in between. You're either shooting with fingers or, holy crap, they have this thing called a mechanical release and it helps me shoot my bow.
Yeah.
So that was like a big no-no in the target world. Everything in the target world was a recurve, Olympic recurve, trad, longbow, whatever. It was to be shot with your fingers, and that was it.
Yeah.
So 1995, compound bows are allowed into what at the time was called the FITA World Championship. A lot of people complained because they thought the target should have been longer distances for compound shooters against recurve shooters,
right,
and what have you. But now, perfect example again, we just talked about indoor nationals is going on currently in Kentucky, and that's an NFAA event. So obviously all of these associations are now starting to accept the fact that most of their shooters are going to be compound shooters at some point or another.
Yeah. Yeah. So there was some resentment, you know, to the guys shooting traditional.
Absolutely.
And just like today, you know, we have the same deal with guys that shoot, you know, vertical bows and, you know, the crossbow guys.
Yep.
Right. There's always, it's kind of silly, but there's always that back and forth. So same kind of deal, but, you know, with innovation, that's what happens.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump back here because I did miss a note. So for those of you that maybe don't understand how a patent works, whoever the original patent holder is, that patent is good and will not expire until 10 years after the death of the person that actually was approved for the patent.
Or 100 years.
Or 100 years, right. So in 1979, HW dies in a car accident.
Yeah.
So his patent then expires in 1989.
Right.
So what do you think is going to happen in 1989 when you have all of these guys trying to get into the top spot and I'm the guy with the patent?
Yeah.
So that happened, you know, that's a real quick turnaround time for that patent to expire. He got it in 1970 and it expires 19 years later.
Right.
And he had just licensed it to all of these manufacturers who are obviously making little changes and doing this different to the riser or to the limb or whatever. But now you have all of these guys with good engineers that, hey, there's a patent that no longer exists.
Right.
We can do whatever we want.
Yes.
So we'll jump to the next big name, I guess you would call it in the patent world, of archery. Now, I had the pleasure briefly working with him when I was repping, but his name is Rex Darlington. And if you've never heard the name Rex Darlington, shame on you, because this gentleman holds about 60 patents in the archery industry.
Yeah.
So a lot of the stuff that you see today, whether whoever the manufacturer is, there are a lot of things that are licensed from his patents.
Right.
And Rex was the original founder of Darton Archery.
Right.
So Darton never made a bow, started off in the 1950s making leather accessories for recurve shooters.
Yeah.
So he saw the need of what was going on, licensed the first patent. Patent goes away or expires. And literally, if you type in Rex Darlington into Google, there'll be a website that pops up called Justia Patents, and you will see all of the patents that he has, and they start back in
1975. From 1975 until 2017
was the last one that he filed. Was in 2017.
60 of them.
Yep,
which is crazy.
Yeah. So, you know, Darton, I left shortly after the Black Eagle Conquest merger with Darton, where Randy Kitts purchased Darton. Rex wanted to retire, but is still doing some of the engineering for Darton. So yeah, Rex is pretty kind of special guy.
Absolutely.
He not only just because he holds 60 patents, but I was able to actually be in his office.
Yeah.
Now you would think, as the owner of a gigantic archery company, you know, he'd walk in and be huge, you know, executive type office. If his office was bigger than a broom closet, that was pushing it. There was a desk, a computer, a phone, and a tray of cookies. And I'm the jokester type. I like to, you know, pick fun and do goofy things to make people laugh. And I asked the person that was giving me the tour, do you think Rex wouldn't realize if I took one of those cookies? And he said, you might not have a hand if you touch those cookies. He literally put the cookies in order in the tray. And if they were not in the order, it would bother him.
Wow.
And obviously, when you're an engineer type and you hold 60 patents, I get that.
Yeah, you're different.
You're different. You're a smart different, for sure.
You're a different breed. Yeah.
But so, the first one that he filed for in December 1976 was an adjustable grip for the compound bow, which allows adjustment of draw length without change of the bow structure or string length. So you weren't changing a mod. You weren't twisting cables or anything like that. You were literally changing your grip.
Right.
So crazy that in 1976 he figured that out.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm sorry, that was not the first one. That was the third one. The first one was right after he applied for also a force multiplying type of archery bow. And then his most current one in 2017 was an archery bow compromises first and second limb levers pivotably coupled to first and second limbs about first and second lever pivot axes. Now, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, no clue.
But it had something to do with something, I'm sure.
Yes.
So now if you go back to the Spectra E and the Vegas bow, I believe it was, they had a almost like pulley system in the cable. And it was, I'm kind of getting what he's talking about because that bow came out in 2018.
Okay.
So there was two wheels in the cam that were like pulleys. And it pulled on the limb in the middle rather than just on the tip. And it does say one or both of the cables is coupled to its respective limb lever in a central plane, perpendicular to and centered across the respective pivot axis, and or is coupled to the intermediate section of the other limb. So that's what I'm guessing that is that pulley system that he designed for the Spectra E. There was an E3D, an E Target, and then there was a Vegas E Series that were both Target and 3D. So that is my guess as to what that patent was for.
And that must be different than like the old Oneidas. Remember the Oneida with the pivoting
lever action bows?
Yeah. Yes. So, because those were back in early 90s.
Yeah, and now they're back.
Yeah.
So they're still being made.
Yep.
There are a lot of collectors of those bows.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is kind of how, where we got to today. Now you look at today, and we'll go back a little bit of history because there's some names that people probably have never heard of. So we'll start in the beginning. So there was Carroll Compounds, Cupid Archery out of Canada, the Faro Compound, Buckle Bows, Spartan Archery. There's a picture of one here. Doug, tell me what that looks like.
Man. What year is that? That's 1973. Looks like it's aluminum. It looks like an erector set, basically.
I was hoping he was going to pick up on that because it literally does. It looks like somebody used an erector set to build a bow.
Yes. And for all you kids that don't know what an erector set is, yeah, that's just it was a box of metal parts, basically, and you kind of screwed the parts together and you made buildings and you made, whatever.
Cars and all kinds of stuff. Yes.
So everything kind of screwed and bolted together.
Right.
But that's exactly what that looks like.
So that was Jim Sweeney Custom Bows, and that bow was built from 1970 to 1975. I don't know who would have bought it. So I can see, I see a bottom limb, and it is definitely a laminate wood.
Yes.
It has almost like a vertical grip.
Yeah. Almost like on an AR.
Right. Forearm grip on an AR sticking out of the bottom of the upper part of the riser.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely a
really
weird
bizarre
looking bow.
But you know what? That could have been the draw to it.
Exactly.
You're saying, why would somebody buy that? Because that's never been seen before.
Right.
In 1973. It's like, what the hell is that? I gotta have this.
The aliens came and delivered that one.
Yeah.
So then you had Herders, Bonnie Bowman Archery, Spartan Center 1 cams. So there's a perfect example. 1 cam in 1977.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matthews, doesn't belong to you. Then the Martin Warthog in 1976. You had Wing Archery in 1976, York Archery in 76. So there's a lot of companies.
Yeah.
And now I get why there was 100 bows available
that's right.
in those years.
There were 30 companies.
Right. There's the PSE Presidential Citation in 1977. The Bear Alaskan, which was the aluminum riser bow with wood limbs and micro click adjustments. Can't forget that part.
Yeah, high tech.
And then you jump basically to 1980s, and now you have Browning. That's when Browning was real big in the bow side, was in the 80s.
Yes, and that's when I had my first bow in 1982, 2 was a Browning.
Nice.
And it was a big maple chunk of riser.
Wheels on it.
Yeah. I could barely get my 12-year-old hands around it, and had 2 little tiny wheels, like little 1.5 inch wheels on it.
And they were plastic, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were plastic.
That was a big thing. They really didn't get into aluminum until like late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
They were always like a hardened plastic.
Yep.
And then you had
that bow right there that we're looking at, that Stemler.
Yep.
That bow is hanging on the wall in my camp.
Get out of here.
Yes, that was my dad's first compound bow, and it's still hanging on the wall.
Nice.
Yeah.
So there's a picture. It's called Stemler Archery.
Yep.
It was the Centaur, and it had a 40-inch ATA.
Yeah.
And it literally looks like somebody took a maple 2x4 and just buzzed some curves into it.
Kind of carved it out a little bit. Yes. Yeah.
Then in 84, you got the Super Brown Bear and the Brown Bear from Bear. Martin had the Jaguar, the Cougar Magnum, the Cougar 2, the Cougar Magnum with cams, and the Bobcat with cams. So there you went from wheels to cams, and that's in 83.
Yep.
Then you have the Bear Whitetail Hunter 2, which everybody knows what that bow was.
I had one in the late 80s. That's what I had. Yep.
Hoyt had the Rambo in 1985. Geez, wonder why they call it the Rambo.
Good marketing.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's see. Then you had the Cougar Pro Series from Martin. You get into the Delta V and the Firecat.
Yep.
Then let's see. This one might have went backwards. Here we go. Now we're starting to see some fancy stuff.
Yes.
In the late 80s. You're starting to get into a little bit of aluminum.
Yeah.
Martin was probably one of the first ones to do it. And the in particular bow they're showing here is the Martin Anza.
Yep.
And it's got like the gold cams, the gold limb pocket, the gold overdraw.
I was gonna say, it looks like an overdraw on that as well.
So,
and that was a screamer. The Martins, they were always screamers.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was a special edition gold plated model. And then from there, you go from 90 to 99. Now, this is where you start seeing the jump.
Yeah.
Everybody's getting in, serious in the game. There's a lot of bows out there. There's a lot of bows being sold. And now we're getting into the years where it became okay for you to compete with a compound.
Right.
So, for instance, we actually have not this late of a bow, but this name stuck around in the Hoyt world for a while. And in 1992, Hoyt came out with the Pro Force and the Pro Force Carbon Plus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we actually have, it's probably an 8 or 9-year-old Hoyt. It's a left-handed shoot-through Pro Force in the shop right now from a customer that's trying to sell it. So just to give you an idea of, that's 1992. We're currently in 2024, and the bow that we have is probably 8 or 9 years old. So you're talking a 20-year name swing, and they're still using it.
Yeah.
Astro Archery. I can't say I've ever heard of them. Let's see. We have the York shoot-through overdraw bow. Now, so I didn't think shoot-through was a thing until early 2000s, but apparently I was wrong.
Right.
And that baby had 65% let off. So you were getting somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got to be getting close to the time where the split limbs came in.
Yes.
Because I remember my first split limb bow was a Hoyt.
Okay.
I don't remember the exact model, but it was in 1994-ish, I'm guessing. And the only reason I can remember that is because I had a 94 Dodge pickup and I had a Hoyt sticker in the back window. So that's the only way I can remember when I had my Hoyt back then. So so that's pretty much like when the split limbs started to come into the game.
Gotcha. And so here it looks like in this time frame too is when the Martin prototyped out the Scepter with vibration dampening. Space age technology right there. Throw a piece of rubber into your limb. It'll stop it from vibrating.
Yeah.
So some of these guys were obviously, trying to get to where we're at today way back then. So Alpine Archery, I'm sure everybody has heard of Alpine before. They were around for a while.
Yeah.
I believe they became High Country.
Maybe.
After a certain
point. I'm not sure.
I could be wrong, but I thought so. I think I see an Oneida. Nope, that's a PSE. 1994, PSE had what looked to be a lever action bow with a second pulley or second cam in the middle of it.
Were they the first, or Oneida was the first?
Oneida was the first, I'm pretty sure, but maybe that might be a shadow in that picture from this first bow.
Yeah.
So we're looking at bows online here as we're talking about this. Yeah. There's the Eagle 93.
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
So 93, the lever action bow. If you've never had a chance, if you know somebody with a good shape, older Oneida Eagle that can be shot, shoot that bow. It is probably one of the coolest things to watch those limbs fold up.
Yeah.
And shoot. And they weren't super fast, but for the time they were fast.
Yes.
Then we go into Anza again. There's the Pro Vantage from Hoyt. And the American Archery, the Challenger 3D, the Eliminator 3D, and the Dream. And there's High Country right there. High Country in 1991. So I could be wrong. Maybe they weren't. So then, now obviously we're getting into some stuff that we should be all familiar with.
Yeah.
Who the heck was Richwood?
Don't know. Never heard of him.
So in 2006, there was a bow company called Richwood. But in 2006, it was the CP Oneida Extreme Eagle, and they had like 8 different versions of that eagle. There was the War Eagle, the Fighting Eagle, the Screaming Eagle.
Right.
So yeah, that was...
I never had one of those.
I never owned one.
Never owned one.
I've seen a few, and there's the first split limb I see.
Yep.
So it looks like it might have been a little before this, but according to this site that we're using...
Yeah, that's 02. You know what? That's probably correct. I mean, obviously that's correct, but I may have just been
driving a 1994 Dodge pickup.
It wasn't 94. It must have been my 04.
Okay.
Which would make more sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, it was actually 2004, not 1994.
So we have in 02, Hoyt, the Havatech, and the PSE Nitro were the two, big screaming bows that year. But the Hoyt did have split limbs.
Yep.
And the Nitro did not.
The Havatech is actually it. Now that I see it in writing, that's the bow I had, the Havatech.
And then you have in 06, Pearson had split limbs.
Now I had a Pearson too, but it wasn't a split limb.
Okay.
I shot a Pearson spoiler.
Yep.
And that was a screamer too.
Yeah.
For its time.
Well, and it's funny because as we're looking at some of these bows, so when we first opened the shop, there was another shop that was local to the area that unfortunately the original owner had passed, and we ended up buying out whatever was in the store as far as inventory and tools and things of that nature because the family needed the building. And when I tell you that I had brand new 25-year-old bows, no joke, they still had tags on them. They still had boxes for them.
Yeah.
There was Pearsons, there was PSEs, Golden Eagles, Oneidas, a whole bunch of different stuff. And actually, so 02 must have been the year for the split limb because now here is the Alpine SS, the Golden Eagle Splitfire, the High Country Super Slim, and those all had split limbs. So that 01, 02 area is when the limbs started to get cut down and cut in half. And I'll save my joke that I wanted to tell there till the end. So in 06, you had Kodiak Outdoors. 02, the Darton Rampage, the Parker Ultralight, and the Spoiler Light from Pearson. And now this is funny because the bow that we're looking at currently on the screen is a company that we just brought into the shop. Some of you may have heard of them, some of you may have not, and they're based out of Canada. And they literally have used the name since 2006.
Yeah.
So there is an APA Black Mamba, and we literally just got in a 2024 Black Mamba 29.
Yeah.
And aside from the grip area, the lower grip area, riser, almost looks, and the cams are obviously different, but looks almost identical.
Yes. Not much change.
Nope.
Yep.
And what we're going to do probably next week, we'll do a bow breakdown on that.
Yeah.
Because it's a different bow, that's for sure.
Yes, it is a different bow.
And they are still solid limb. They don't split their limbs on their bow.
Right. The other bow on the far right there, that Bowtech Tribute. Right there, if you look at the rack.
Oop, I see it.
On the left.
I see it.
That's my Bowtech. That's a 2006 Bowtech Tribute.
There you go.
Probably my, I'm not going to say favorite. It was always my favorite bow, but that bow has got more kills than every other bow I've ever owned combined.
Nice.
That
that bow is just fantastic. That's why I still have it. After all these years, it's almost 20 years, I still have it. I just can't let go of it.
All I can see really from here, I know that I can see a kind of a sight housing on it.
Yep.
But there's a gigantic, what looks like what were those balls the kids used to play with? The cush balls or whatever they were? That's what it looks like coming off of your cable guard.
Yes. Yeah. That's exactly it. Yeah. You can see it there.
It is in the picture. Look at that.
Yep. So
big old like octopus thing.
Yep. And in the Bowtech circle, that is one of the most revered. Like old guys like me that shot back then, the Bowtech tribute was kind of the gold standard.
Gotcha.
Even to this day, people say, that was the best bow that Bowtech ever produced. So
yeah, because they're definitely not saying that about some of their new ones.
No, but yeah, so it's still hanging on the rack, and I just can't let go of it.
So yeah, I mean, I'm seeing like a lot of now. Not that I'm not old, I'm just not as old as Doug. So like some of the names that are popping up now. So you're seeing a lot more PSE Mojo 2006.
That's a solo cam there.
Yep. It's funny, I haven't seen a Matthews bow yet.
Nope.
Yet 2006 Diamond Rapture. So Diamond is now owned by Bowtech.
Right.
Way back then, I was actually working for Gander Mountain at the time, and we got to go out to the Diamond factory in Oregon, and I built my own Diamond with the engineers. That was pretty cool.
I didn't realize they were in Oregon.
Yeah, the Diamond was.
That's where Bowtech is.
Yeah, so that's how I think Pure Archery Group came about. Was they were right there, and Diamond was obviously.
Well, Diamond is the
kids version or the step-in version.
Yes.
Now.
Yeah.
But that was, back then they were their own thing. They were trying to do what they're trying to do. Just wasn't working for them.
I guess Bowtech must have just bought them or absorbed them or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Then here comes some of the speed bows. 2006 PSE Mach X. The 2006 Hoyt Tricon XL.
I remember that one.
Yep.
I didn't own that one, but a lot of my buddies did.
We just had one not too long ago come into the shop for a string set.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a Buckmaster.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Let's see here. Whose is this? Archery Research.
Don't know
who that is.
No. It's a Fred Bear.
Fred Bear Code.
And that's also solo cam.
Yep. So yeah, a lot of these bows, I mean, obviously there's bows here with cams in this year, two cams, but the solo cam, I've probably counted 9 or 10 of them now.
Yeah.
In 2006.
There's an Alpine too. Alpine's come and gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the Tundra Avalanche.
Yeah. And I haven't seen one yet, but even before this time, back I believe it was in the 90s, there was a company called Oregon.
I did see one on there.
You did see one there? They were, at the time, they were supposed to be, super high-end bows, and they kind of just fell off. I don't know. They weren't around very long.
I think a lot of those companies, they just were trying to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah.
They might have been like an outdoor company already.
Yeah.
And when they saw this taking off and the patent was kind of open.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we have an engineering department. We can do this.
Right.
So they did. But here's one everybody should know, the Browning Barracuda.
Yep.
That was a well-known bow back in the mid-2000s, early 2000s. There's a Darton Spectre.
Yep.
Let's see. Let's get a couple years ahead here, see where we get to. Lots of 2006 bows, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
Everybody came out with a bow in 2006.
Yeah.
2006, though.
And Hoyt is still using that riser.
Yep. With that handle in the back that drives me insane.
Yep. Yeah, they're still using it.
2006. Holy God.
Yeah, tons.
Guess they stopped making pictures after 2006 on this website. But you see, I mean, you get the idea of it, from where it changed. Now, if you look at today, you've got all these dampening devices. You've got, bows, for instance, the Athens or the Bowtech. Athens this year, because it's the newest, has the AccuTune Cam. Bowtech started it a few years ago. Obviously, there was a lot of talk that, the patents were copied, and if you are a smart person in any shape of the word and look at the difference in the way that each cam moves, they are nowhere near close to each other.
No.
So, I know there's been, a lot of speculation and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to get into all of it, but.
And Jim is a
pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to do something that stupid.
No.
So he crossed his T's and dotted his I's before he jumped into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because obviously, for what they did, they had to go get a patent.
Yeah.
Just like Bowtech had to go get a patent.
Right.
So it is patent pending. They filed for it. But like I said, if you look at the bow and put two of them next to each other and go to move the cam on either one of them, the Bowtech is on more of like a corkscrew axle.
Yeah.
Where you're spinning the entire axle to move the cam.
Right.
The AccuTune from Athens, it's almost like a bar that comes out and pushes the cam over
on a smooth axle.
On a smooth axle, right? So, not even close. Yeah. Now, word is that Obsession bows also came out with a tunable cam. I have not seen this in person. I have heard it is a little closer to the Bowtech set up, but I'm not real sure. But I do know who built the bows, and I don't think he would have done that either.
Yeah.
So you heard me. No, we didn't mention it. Did you write the number down for the shoot on the Salt Flats shoot?
No.
Kevin Struthers one?
No, it was a stupid number.
Yeah, it was a ridiculous number. So Kevin Struthers, if some of you never heard, 1,200 and something meters.
Yeah.
Shoots an arrow at that distance. But if you don't know who Kevin Struthers is, Kevin Struthers has been in the industry a long time. He had his own bows for a while, and then he started basically contracting with other manufacturers and was building bows. And up until recently, over the last, I'd say anywhere from 3 to 5 years, I think it was, he was building bows for Expedition or designing bows. And this year, he had left the contract with Expedition and started designing for Obsession. And I thought it was pretty neat because I actually worked with Obsession as well not too long ago. And, he builds an awesome bow. I've never shot one of his bows that I didn't like, but Doug's got numbers for me.
The magic of Google.
So the world record.
So Kevin still holds the world record for both flight distance and speed.
Oh, Jesus.
So the flight distance was 1,320 yards.
So he beat his previous one. He just did that a couple years ago because I remember him posting about it.
The other one was in meters.
Yeah.
So this is in yards.
Okay.
1,320 yards.
Can you imagine flinging an arrow that far?
Yeah. Wait till you hear the speed.
Oh, God.
588 feet per second. I don't know if I want to shoot that bow.
No, that's super aggressive. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to shoot that bow. But yeah, crazy. Just crazy numbers.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't, I have a hard time, for instance, our shoot, we have a couple targets over 100 yards. You lose sight of the arrow at some point.
Yes.
How do you even know where the arrow is at that distance?
Yeah.
There's got to be judges like all the way down this lane because they shoot in the Bonneville Salt Flats.
Right.
And I've never seen how they do it. I've never seen like video of it, but I know what the Salt Flats are. Because
that's why they test the cars, too,
right? Yes.
So, yeah.
So it's a pretty big, wide open piece of desert.
Yes.
So I don't know how they have judges, staggered all the way down or what the deal is. But I mean, God forbid you get a gust of wind and that arrow comes and your judge has no idea where it's at when it's incoming. So,
but there must be something with that environment.
Yeah.
And speed.
Right.
Because that's where they do all the speed tests.
Land airspeed limits and all that stuff.
That's where they're done. So there's something.
It's probably
that
a real
environment.
Thin type of air because it's a desert, but it's also higher elevation desert. So yeah, I would
super dry.
That,
no humidity. So there's something to that obviously with speed.
Yeah. But yeah, so there's we wanted to do this because obviously the bow we're talking about. Everybody knows who Bear Archery is. Bear obviously was huge in the recurve world because of Fred Bear, and then it became Bear Jennings.
Yeah.
Right. So obviously Jennings and Bear got together and started doing some thinking and figuring out how to, just kind of take over the game. But at the same time, all these other companies came out.
Yeah.
So,
and really when you think about it, all of these other companies benefited from, the tragedy of the car accident.
Right.
Because if it wasn't for that car accident in 1979, that patent would still be going and none of these guys could do this.
Nope.
So it's funny how it all played out.
Yeah.
Because a tragedy turned into what we have today.
Yep. And it's the weird part about, patents, the way they work, because obviously it's that person he's the important guy until something happens.
Right.
In this case, this was 9 years after he got the patent. So that, very super unfortunate, but at the same time,
he never got to see how it all evolved. He created this monster, never got to, reap the benefits.
Has no idea what an 8-limb bow looks like. I told you I'd throw it in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So, you go from, wood limbs with a little bit of fiberglass to more fiberglass. Now you have carbon.
Yep.
And then, it was all solid in the start. Then they realized, okay, hey, let's split them, make it lighter, make it faster.
Yeah.
Then you went to...
Well, they split them into twos. So it's 4 limbs. Now, there's some companies that are shooting 8 limbs.
8 limbs.
So, yeah.
We all know who that is.
With a piece of rubber in between.
Yeah. But no, so that's, you went from almost a vertical limb to beyond parallel.
Yeah, beyond parallel, yeah.
Now, if you look at some of the PSEs, especially their target bows,
they're going back
to vertical.
Yeah.
And it's all about the way they do it. So PSE, if you're a PSE owner or a shop owner that sells PSEs, if you look at the owner's manual, when you get them out of the box, there's a big green sticker on it. And it says you must take out the limb bolt 4 turns before putting in a press. And that's because PSE learned how to preload them. So they're preloaded. So if you press them when the bolt is all the way in, you're going to snap that limb right in half. So that's where, you look at a Dominator, the Unite that I shot last year, stupid crazy speeds out of them. And can you get there? Sure. Obviously Kevin has figured out how to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
But the reason they started preloading was so that they can have that little bit extra speed.
Yeah.
And some of those are super aggressive. I know last year we had a Darton Vegas shoot-through bow. Did you shoot that bow last year?
I did not.
Literally almost fell out of my hand the first time I shot it because I didn't put any weight on it. I just threw a rest and I wanted to see how it felt. Yeah. And you and I shoot very similar, high-wristed.
Yep.
And you're not really holding the bow. So it's, when you shoot and you almost crap yourself because the bow's falling out of your hand, that's a little scary.
Yeah.
And it's because of, the aggressiveness, the speed. And that's what happens. The bow has to do something in order to get rid of some of that energy, and it tried to jump out of my hand. But yeah, so it's from start to finish to where we are today. You got basically Bear, PSE, Hoyt, Matthews, Bowtech, Athens, Prime, APA, Elite.
Yeah,
are kind of the 9 big ones.
Yeah.
Now, some people would just break it down in the top 4, and obviously my top 4, your top 4 are completely different than somebody else's top 4.
Right. But those are the big players.
Yeah, those are the ones that are doing engineering and figuring things out. Some better than others, but so you go from 15% let off
to 90.
To 90.
Yeah.
From 48-inch axle to axle to 29 is pretty much the shortest I think you can get now.
Bowtech. Bowtech has that CP28.
That's right. The 28. And then
tiny.
Look at the gear head.
Well, that's really tiny.
What is that? Like 22, 23?
Yeah, about 24 like maybe. Yeah.
And they're a cool little bow, but I have a hard time with the grip where it is.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
They're a cool bow. We see a couple of them in the shop. There's a couple of our customers that shoot them.
Yep.
Cool little bows, but
I think we shot those at ATA 2 years ago, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's a lot of saddle hunters are using them because they're so small. They just stick them in their backpack.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Bowtech 28, APA has a 29, Matthews has a 29.
Yeah.
Elite, I think, has a 29. Most everybody else is 30, 31, and 32, 33.
Well, Matthews has the 27, right? Didn't they have a V3 27, something like that?
27 and a half.
Yeah. That's real tiny.
Yeah. But you and I have shot that APA already, and when I drew it back, I swore I had like a Barbie toy in my hand. It was so small. So being tall, it's especially hard when you have a bow that tiny in front of you.
Yeah, that string angle is really, really steep.
Yeah. So it's funny because a couple of other guys have shot it, and it's a hard start bow.
Yeah.
Number one, any bow at that axle to axle is going to be a hard start.
Yeah.
Unless you have like a stupid brace height and you're not getting any speed out of it. But the guys, the companies that make those short bows are looking for speed.
Yes.
So it's super aggressive, super hard start.
Yeah.
Now, I don't want to say it drops into a valley or anything. Like, it's not like a hump. But to get there, you got to break that cam over. And if you don't break that cam over, it will try to rip your shoulder off for sure.
No doubt. But once you get there.
Yeah, well, once you're there,
then it's nice.
Yeah. Sit there all day with it.
Yeah. Getting to that point.
Yeah.
So, but listen, that's some guys love that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, my 53-year-old shoulders don't, you know.
My 44 shoulders don't like it either.
So, yeah, it's not for everybody, but some guys love it. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode. We thank you for tuning in. This episode was brought to you by Rugged Road Coolers, one of our new sponsors. And we will be here next weekend, same time, same bat channel.
Yeah.
Whatever they say.
Yeah.
Right here from Summitwood Studios. But if you want to see the full video, full breakdown on the Bear Persist, head over to our YouTube channel. That'll be up later this afternoon.
Yep.
Until then, we will catch you next week.
Yes. Happy St. Patty's Day.